Are you ready?
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is my son, Alanchik Wager. His name is really, say your full name, please.
Alan Kavish.
Alan Kalis Wager. He is 4 years old, almost 5. And I am 72 years old, almost 73. Just yesterday, Alanchik was telling me that I have too many toys and he doesn't have enough. And the reason is because I am old, he said, and he is new. And it's new people who should have most of the toys. And I think he's probably right. My good friend Maksat also thinks that I am getting old. I don't think so, but he thinks so. And that I should record some things, say some things for posterity, so that many, many years from now, people will know what I think about life and the world and my son, who I love, Ochin. So, Papa Alanchik needs to answer some questions that Maksat has prepared, and I will do it. But I think you probably should go play with the children. What do you think?
No.
It's even better.
It's okay? You want to just sit with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Maksat has prepared a list of probing questions for me to answer, and I will do my best. Okay, the first question is,
How about
could I share some of my favorite memories as a child in New Orleans? What you may or may not know is that I was born in a city in America called New Orleans, Louisiana is the state. And I was an only child. I had no brothers and no sisters. And I was born, my parents had been married for many years before they had me. So I was a gift maybe to them, just like Alanchik is a gift to me. As an only child, I learned to play by myself. I loved my city. It's famous for a carnival called Mardi Gras. I loved to play baseball and football. My father was very interested in sports, and he was hoping I would become a famous baseball player, and we practiced all the time. Ultimately, I disappointed him. I was a great baseball player when I was 10 years old, and by the time I was 15 years old, I wasn't so good anymore. My father was an interesting guy. He was born during what was called the Great Depression in America, or right before the Great Depression. And his family was poor, and he was a smart guy.
Where are children? Where's children?
Where are the children? You want to go play with the children?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find them. Anyway, he was a really smart guy. He had been in the U.S. Army in World War II. And a great disappointment in his life was that he was not able to go to college because his family didn't have the money to do that. And so he quite honestly, my father seemed like an angry guy. And I think he was a bit angry at life because he was not able to accomplish the things or have the kind of future that he thought he could have had he had a good education. With me, he was a very strict guy, serious guy, not a very emotional guy. One of Maksat's questions, I remember without looking at the list, is, do to talk about my experiences in marriage, because I was married in America more than once before I came to Kyrgyzstan. And when you say that you were married more than once, it means that maybe your marriages didn't work, and my marriages didn't work well, and it was my fault, really, or my background, because my parents, some of this is really too sad to talk about, but my parents had a difficult marriage, and they argued a lot, and we lived in a very small house, so I could hear every argument that they would have about one thing or another. And when you're a child and your parents are unhappy, it influences your life, and you don't know what a good marriage is supposed to be like, because the only influences are what you see as a child. And when you're a small child, the things you see and experience live with you for a lifetime. So anyway, I had a good childhood. I just think I didn't learn the basics of good relationships between men and women. I was a smart guy, like my father. I did well in school. He wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, because he had many jobs in his life, and they were not great jobs. And like any good father, he was hoping for me better than he had for himself. And that's an admirable thing. But he pushed me, and he was aggressive with me when it came to school and schooling. But I liked school. To be honest, I loved school from the first time I went. And anyway, my childhood was a good childhood, and my parents loved me. My mother took care of me. She was a homemaker while I was a small child. Later she became a nurse, but she always took very good care of me. And when she died in 2006, I lost a great friend. Anyway, I became a lawyer even before I was married for the first time. And I was a very serious student, and I did well in law school, and the different law companies in New Orleans were anxious to hire me. Most of the law firms in New Orleans were aristocratic law firms. The lawyers were from wealthy, highly educated families, and I was not. But my academic performance was very good, and they wanted me anyway, even though I didn't exactly fit in with the culture of the big old New Orleans law firms. The law firm that I went to work for was called Phelps Dunbar, and it was one of the oldest law firms in the United States, and it was a great law firm, and I was determined that I would do well, and I was a big success in that law firm. I'm very proud of many of my accomplishments as a lawyer in that law firm. The problem that created, however, was that I was really married to my career, married to my job. I worked 7 days a week. I wasn't at home too much. I traveled a lot on business. And the sad thing, I think, is that I was a much better lawyer than I was a husband, and ultimately was a much better lawyer, perhaps, than I was a father to to my two children in America, who I'll talk about in a minute. Let me take a moment and look at Maksat's questions so I don't get too far off track. What inspired me to pursue a career in law was the fact that my father told me, in effect, that I should be a lawyer. But I didn't have a problem with that. There wasn't some other job that I was more interested in. I was interested in politics and history, and those were subjects in school that lent themselves well to becoming a lawyer. I wasn't particularly good or interested in science or chemistry, biology, so the prospect of being a doctor wasn't appealing to me, and I'm sure that I would not have been a good doctor. I was a very good lawyer. One of the questions from Maksat was very interesting. It was, can you tell us about your experience with girls that you might have wanted to marry but didn't marry? And as it turned out, that was not the problem that I had. I tended to marry the girls that I wanted to marry, but the marriages were not great, and again, it was my fault more than theirs. I wasn't equipped, in my opinion, to be a good husband. I was a great provider. I made a lot of money as a lawyer, and we traveled the world, and we did some great things, and eventually we lived in big houses and lived fancy lives, but that's not the definition of a good marriage. And money is not the thing to be pursued. It's important, but it's not the most important thing in life. Even as a lawyer, it wasn't about the money for me. It was about the respect from other people when I was a successful lawyer, and I loved being successful and having respect as a very, very good lawyer. I was very proud of my legal skills. When I say it wasn't about money, there were many times I could have moved and worked for different law businesses and made more money. My father, as I think about my father, and the relationship, honestly, was not a good one. We were in conflict a lot because we didn't agree with one another about a lot of things. And as I said before, I think he was sort of an angry guy. But he gave me one piece of advice, which I followed, and it was good then, and it's probably good now for people today. He said, don't do what I did and move from one job to another job to another job. That's not success. Better to go to work someplace as a young guy and stay with that place no matter what, and view it as a long-term career opportunity, and do your best and stay with the same company. And that was a period in America among lawyers where lawyers were jumping often from one law firm to another for more money, typically. And I could have done that, but I didn't. I stayed at the same place my entire professional career. I graduated from law school in 1975. I went to work for one law firm, and I stayed at that one law firm for my entire career as a lawyer in the United States, which was about 40 years, a long time. And I never regretted that I didn't try to make more money someplace else. And I gained the respect of the people there. The difficulty I ultimately had was that I was what's called a type A personality, sort of obsessive compulsive. I wanted to be a giant success. I wanted to be the best at everything I did. I wanted to be first in the class and the youngest partner and the most successful partner in the law firm. And the difficulty with that is that I was running, everybody else was running a marathon, and a professional career is a marathon, and I was running a sprint from the very beginning. So I was, to use an American phrase, I was burned out by the time I was in my 50s. I just couldn't do it anymore, and ultimately I moved to I came to Kyrgyzstan, where I'm sitting right now. I moved to Kyrgyzstan when I was in my 50s. I quit my legal career in America because I was very stressed. I was having psychological problems. I was having to take lots of medicines in order to avoid the stress and anxiety of my career. And I was just, quite honestly, in very bad shape. And I was seeing, like most Americans, I had my own psychiatrist and multiple psychiatrists, and I was in such bad shape that finally my psychiatrist told me, look, this is killing you. You need to quit this job, do something different, go someplace different. You're not going to make it for a lifetime doing this. And I had come to Kyrgyzstan with some clients on business several times. My clients were interested in importing alcohol products from Kyrgyzstan to the United States. And I came here with them on business several times. And I like the place. I still like the place and the people. They're very kind. It's a good country. It's a poor country, not a place to make money really, but it's a place that I liked. And when I was at a point where I just couldn't do it anymore in America, and I needed to escape to someplace, I was looking to go about as far away in the world as I could. And if you look on a map, you'll see that Kyrgyzstan is next to China, and it was a great place to escape. The people spoke Russian here because it was part of the Soviet Union, and I didn't speak Russian, and I didn't really want to speak because I had spent a lifetime and a career in meetings with clients and lawyers, and I was talking all day, every day, forever. Anyway, I moved here, and my friends in America thought I was crazy for doing it, and they couldn't understand it. But for me, it was a very peaceful place, and I could relax for the first time in many, many years. Let me shift gears. I've lost track of Maksat's questions, but let me shift gears for a moment and talk about my children. With my first wife, we had no children, but I had a child with my second wife, and that relationship ended in a divorce. The details are really too painful to go into at this point, and not necessary, I think, but we were divorced when my child was 4 or 5 years old. I didn't give up my relationship with my son, whose name is Connor, and I continued to see him, but his mom was very angry to me, and it was a very difficult period in everybody's life. And I did my best to maintain that relationship, lost it for a period of time, regained it years later under difficult circumstances, and I have a good relationship with my son now, who lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He has a daughter who is the same age as Alanchik, which creates the unusual situation where Alanchik is the same age as his niece. Later I had, with a different wife, a daughter whose name was Victoria, and she was a wonderful child, and we had a great time. I see Alanchik coming to me. When she was a child, she was beautiful, and I adored her. We traveled the world together, she and her mom and me. And it was a very good time for all of us. Anyway, when Victoria was a teenager, like many American teenagers, she became independent and rebellious. And I was a lawyer working all the time. I think I wasn't the greatest father in the world to a teenager. I didn't know how to do that. I had never really experienced that. I had never really experienced that with my first child. And she moved away from home when she was relatively young. She got married to a guy in Baton Rouge, and she was not a happy person for a variety of reasons, many of which I blame myself for. Anyway, one day I got a phone call from a cousin of mine, and she was in the hospital, and she was in a very bad condition. She was 23 at the time, and by the time she was put in the hospital, she was brain dead. And I was in Bishkek, and my cousin called me, and he said, we're losing her, and the doctors say we have to let her go. And this was surely the most painful period of my life.
But why you doctor said let him go? He's doesn't hospital. He's dead.
She's dead now, and you know it because you know this story. So she died, and I flew to America for the funeral, and it was extremely painful time for me to lose that child. And I came back to Kyrgyzstan, and this really gets to the story. But before I forget, her mom had difficulty having a child, and we tried and could not. And so ultimately, Victoria was born through what in America is called in vitro fertilization. She was our child, but she was born by IVF, and when I came back to Kyrgyzstan, I was crushed for many months. But my wife Maral, we weren't married at the time, but her daughter Sabina was having some physical problems for which she needed help with at a female clinic, and Maral was in Korea with her sister who was very ill, and I took Sabina to this Korean women's hospital in Bishkek many times for treatments. And it became apparent to me as I was sitting there that it was not just a female hospital, but it was also a fertility clinic. And I was very familiar with fertility clinics from months and months and years dealing with them in America. And by this point I was in my late 60s, but I was crushed, and I was thinking, goodness, you're going to die in Kyrgyzstan, and you have no child, and no one to carry on your name. And I said, do you do fertility tests at this clinic? And they said to me, well, of course, we're a fertility clinic, we do fertility tests. And I said, well, I think maybe I would like to be tested. How much does it cost? And it was not expensive. And to be honest, I think the doctor and the nurses thought I was crazy, because I was this old man getting tested for fertility. But I had a thought in my mind. Anyway, they tested me, and a couple weeks later they called. They said, Mr. Wager, we have your test results. And I thought, but we will give it to you in person at the clinic. And I said, okay. And quite honestly, I was thinking to myself, oh, they're going to tell me you're crazy. So I went to see the Korean doctor and met with him, and he said, Mr. Wager, we're very surprised at the results of your test, because despite your age, you're still capable of having children. And I said, wow, that's great news. It's not really what I was expecting. I was expecting a negative result. And so my girlfriend for many years in Bishkek, Maral, was older and was divorced and had children of her own, who were one small, two grown. And I said, Maral, would you consider trying to have a child with me? Because I don't want to die alone. And she talked to her children, and she said, yes, I will do it. And so we took her to this clinic, and she was tested, and even though she was in her 40s at that point, she was still able to have a child. And so we tried to have this boy. And I was very familiar with, it's called, in the Soviet Union was called ECHO, and I was very familiar with this process. And the odds, even with two healthy people, is not good. And Victoria had been the result of maybe 6 or 7 IVF treatments in America, which when she was born were very expensive. And I said to the Korean doctor, I said, look, I don't have the money that I used to have. I can only afford to do this once. What are the percentages? And I knew what the percentages were. It was like success rate someplace between 10 and 20% maximum. So we tried, and the egg was implanted in Maral, and one time she was pregnant, and it was a joy. And the pregnancy was uneventful and very good, and all the tests and the ultrasounds and everything was perfect. And then he was born, and when he was born, it turned out that he was very, very sick. He had pneumonia in both lungs. There had been some last-minute problem in the pregnancy, and Alanchik was in very bad shape, and the doctors did not think he could live. And in fact, he died 3 times, and the doctors managed to bring him back. And they didn't have the proper medicines in Bishkek. But thanks to my brother-in-law, Maral's brother, who was a government guy here, he managed to get from another country the necessary medicines to help Alanchik recover. He couldn't eat on his own for the longest time, and I was scared. Maral was strong, but I was scared. I thought I would lose him for sure, and I have to admit to the world that I've never been a particularly religious guy, but I wanted this. I was so afraid, that I went to a Russian Orthodox church for many days in Bishkek, and I prayed that this boy would be okay. And everyone was very worried about the possibility of brain damage because he had not had oxygen for extended periods of time, and there was no way to know until later whether his brain had been affected. Now the whole world, anybody who knows Alanchik knows that his brain is perfect. He's a smart guy.
Papa.
Duh? What? Why are you crying?
Where Maksat lives?
Maksat lives over this way. You will see where he lives later. But I have to finish telling the story of how you were born, okay?
Yes.
Someday you will listen to this and you will understand it better when you're older. Anyway, he survived, and of course I'm a professional warrior. I worried for months and months and months and months.
When I grow man, I'll be old.
When you grow to be a man, you will just be a man. You will be older.
A little bit.
Well, a little
When I
bit.
grow man,
When you grow a man, you'll be a great man, I think.
I think.
Huh?
I think maybe when I grow man, I'll be older like you, and you'll give me a $400.
Yes, when you're older, you can have your A for Alanchik Legos that they're only for looking at right now. But I think you were also born to be a lawyer because you negotiate everything and you've got an answer for everything.
Or maybe I can grow man and fast, and then maybe I can just take it out from there. And I can play with it then.
Okay, well, you can't grow to be a man too fast. It takes some time. But I think you will be a great man. And I will be proud of you just like your grandpa is proud of you. What is your grandpa? Tell everybody what your grandpa is right now. Hey, what is your grandpa? Do you have a grandpa?
Yes.
Was he an army guy?
Yes.
Yes. And do you still see him?
Yes, he's a spirit.
He's what?
He's a spirit. See him.
He's a spirit. Yes.
Because he's playing with that children.
Yeah.
My spirit.
He's watching those children right now. He watches you all the time.
What?
It's what I believe.
No, he's playing, not watching the children.
He's playing.
He's playing with them.
Yeah. He watches you every night. He watches me every night also. It's a good thing. Okay?
When we're telling a story, he watches us.
He watches us when I'm telling you stories. He's always watching you.
Yes.
He worries about you all the time. It's great. He died many years ago, but that's just his body. I think he's still a spirit, and he's watching us. Huh? Yeah. I wanted to say something about one of Maksat's questions was about advice on
This. What is it?
on your career and your job, and I do have some thoughts about that, which I want to share.
What is it? This.
Oh, it's a microphone. When I'm talking, it's a microphone. It's recording my voice,
But
so you can hear my voice many years from now. You will know what I sound like. My voice. No, you can't hear anything. You're just listening to me. Let me talk for just a moment about something I learned about life.
First you talk, and then when you stop talking, it will just talk your voice.
Well, it's recording my voice on this camera right now. And I know you like to you like to be the star of the show, but I need to say a few more things, okay?
Or maybe when you wear it, you snoring that's.
I'm not snoring. I'm not snoring. I'm awake. You snore.
No.
No?
Or maybe when you sleep, it's just. Or when we sleep, you snore.
I do not snore. Anyway, I want to finish telling something. Come sit here, let me talk. I became a lawyer, and I had no problem with that. But the truth is that I was an introvert by nature. Lots of people find it hard to believe that I was an introvert because I talked too much. But when I became a lawyer, it became very difficult for me after a few years because I loved to practice law and to learn the law, but clients were very difficult and law partners were very difficult, and it became very stressful for me. It changed my life. And so the advice I always give to people, and it's easier said than done, is to find something in life, if possible, that you love to do, something you would do. Make a career of something you would do that you would enjoy doing, whether you were being paid to do it or not. It's not easy. Not many people have the opportunity to do the things that they love. Later in life, I found that I enjoyed, just like Maksad, I enjoyed editing videos and music and editing things. One of the reasons for that was that I was so stressed out at work that I would come home and it relaxed me to do editing things. And if I had my life to do over again, I think I would have gone to Hollywood or Nashville, some music place, and
It comes to that voice, it's moved.
I would have been a film editor or a music editor. I would have been by myself in a soundproof room doing all those things, and I think I would have enjoyed life better. I can't say that I enjoyed life as a younger man so much. I've already said that I don't think I was a particularly good father. And the magic and miracle of Alanchik for me is that as an old man, as he likes to tell me, I'm not new, I have another chance to experience what having a child is like, to spend time with a child. I don't feel as old as I am. He keeps me young. I'm experiencing things over the last 4 years during his life that I never understood before, and I never experienced. And it's magic. It's absolute magic. It's the most wonderful period of my life, and I think that God, and I've said I'm not religious, but I think that God gave me one last opportunity to be a good father. And I'm doing my best, and I'm lucky. I have a great kid. I have a great wife. I have a great extended family. We're getting ready to travel to New Orleans in January for Mardi Gras. I haven't been home to New Orleans in 7 years. My family there and friends there have never met Alanchik, and I cannot wait to introduce him to them so that they can see what a great person he is, and so they can appreciate how lucky I truly am at this point in my life. But the fact of the matter is that Alanchik will lose his father when he's relatively young, and I knew that going into this, and this idea of recording this is actually my friend Maksat's, because he thinks it would be a good idea to say these things while I'm able to do it, and I'm happy to do it.
Maksat is already here.
Yes, he's here, and he's a good friend of mine, and you are here also, and you're my best friend, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. There were a few additional things I was thinking of and wanted to say, mostly related to Alanchik, because he's the most important person in my life at the moment. And I spent a lot of time thinking about his future. Alanchik is 50% American and 50% Kyrgyz. And I'm very proud of that and his background, because many of my best friends in the world are Kyrgyz, and I like this country and I like the people, and I think Alanchik will be a great combination of the two cultures. I don't particularly care where he spends his life as a man, as an adult. There are many good places in the world. Doesn't have to be America. Doesn't have to be any particular place. Just a place to be happy, to have a family and a good life, and enough success to take care of your family, but not so much success as to make you jaded. Education has always been extremely important to me. It was important to my father, and it's important to me. I think without a good education, life is much more difficult, and I think nothing really is more important in life as a starting point than getting a good education. I've made some financial arrangements that I believe will be sufficient to permit Alanchik to be properly educated in later years, perhaps in the United States, at a nice university in the United States. And after he's decided what his career path would be and he's properly educated, then the world will be his apple, and it's my hope he can do exactly what he wants to do and be happy doing it. He's a smart guy. He has a lot of potential, and I think it's important in life to try to reach the maximum potential you can reach, but again, at the same time, being a happy person. Nothing more important than that. I know believe me, I know lots of rich people, lots of gigantically successful people all over the world, and the majority of them are not happy people. I don't know what the secret to being happy is. I could just say that in this later period in my life with Alanchik and Maral, these are truly the happiest moments, and this is the happiest period of my life. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to live this life at this stage. I'll shift gears a bit and tell something a bit funnier, I think, because this has been very serious, and I have lots of funny stories about life in Kyrgyzstan. When I first came to Kyrgyzstan, it was with a client who was interested, as I said earlier, in importing alcohol to the United States. He had met some people from Kyrgyzstan, and he was impressed by their products. At first I told him, no. I looked at a map. Kyrgyzstan, it's on the other side of the world. It's next to China. I'm a busy guy. I've got no time it would take 3 days to get to this place. I said, no, I can't do it. If your friends in Kyrgyzstan, he called them the Russians because it was part of the Soviet Union, and Americans think vodka is just Russian. He said, okay, I'll talk to the Russians and we'll see if they will come to New Orleans. I said, good, because I'm not going to Kyrgyzstan. So he called me, he said he was living in Chicago, and he said, okay, the Russians are willing to come to New Orleans. Yes? Are you having fun? Good. That's the most important thing. He said the Russians are willing to come to New Orleans to negotiate these contracts. I said, great. So one day he flew to New Orleans from Chicago, and we went to the airport to meet the Russians. And these guys come walking down the concourse at the New Orleans airport, and I looked at my friend. I said, Ray, these are not Russians, these are Asian guys. He said, well, vodka, it's Russian, you know. I hadn't done much homework, and I didn't realize that Kyrgyzstan was was Central Asia, and the people are really, the culture is Asian, not Russian, although they do know how to drink vodka. So we negotiated a contract with these guys, some of whom became long-term good friends of mine. And we flew for the first time to Bishkek in January of 2006, and it was very, very cold, and it was snowing, and the mountains, which you might be able to see some mountains in the background, were beautiful. It was a beautiful place, and we were treated like VIPs. And the company that was entertaining us was the largest alcohol company in Kyrgyzstan. And these guys knew how to drink, but they drank like Russians. And in America, we didn't drink vodka the way Russians do. And so they would take us out day after day after day, and we would go horseback riding and shooting and all sorts of wonderful things in this beautiful country. But I was always drunk by the end of the day because they wouldn't stop drinking vodka all day long. And I was not used to it. And I went back to the United States, and I knew we would be coming back to Kyrgyzstan, and I had to practice drinking vodka for months on end, just vodka shots, so I didn't embarrass myself further in Kyrgyzstan. Eventually, after I moved here, I really wasn't practicing law. We were importing vodka to the United States, vodka to the United States from here. And I was doing odds and ends. I was teaching at an American law school here, but I had a lot of time on my hands. And my job for the American company, which was importing alcohol from Kyrgyzstan, was to go to the vodka factory every week and test the quality of the vodka to make sure that the product that was going to America met all of the proper standards. And I had great friends at the factory, and the truth is, we drank and ate, and we had a great time once a week. And then they would put me in a taxi cab and send me back to Bishkek to recover from my trip to Sokoluk, to the factory in Sokoluk. And then I would always tell my friends in America, they would say, well, what are you doing? I said, well, let me explain my job to you. I am a vodka tester. And all I do is go to a vodka factory every week and drink vodka. And they said, wow, what a great job that is. How did you find a job like that? And I said, well, I just sort of happened into it, but now I'm an expert on the subject of vodka. And even to this day, which is 10, 12 years later, I'm still, fortunately or unfortunately, an expert on the subject of vodka. And my friends and I have a good time, and I think I'm more Russian than American at this point. But that's my vodka story. I really like this place, and I've had some other experiences here of many types, which I cannot share publicly with you. But truthfully, if my American friend hadn't brought me here, and I hadn't walked away from my law practice in America, I think my life would have been very different in many respects. I wouldn't have Alan. My life improved, and I will always think very fondly of this place. The truth is, I will die here. I mean, I'm not planning to go back to America, and I can't think of a better place to finish my life and better circumstances to finish my life. So let me say, concluding this, my thanks to Maksat, my good friend, for convincing me that this was a good thing and necessary thing to do. Alanchik, come see Papa. No, come see Papa. Be careful, let me help you.
Ildar wrote them.
Ildar what?
Ildar wrote on the sand.
Ah, he wrote on the sand. I want you to stand with me while I finish this. So anyway, this is my knee is not so great. This is my pride and joy, the reason for living, the best thing, the best person that's ever happened to me. He's a joy. I wish for him a great, long, wonderful life, many children, much success, happiness, doing whatever he wants to do. He's a great guy. In America, he will find out shortly when he goes there for the first time that they will call him Alan and not Alan. But to me, he's Alan. His middle name is Kyrgyz. His name is Kalis. His last name in America is Wager. In Kyrgyzstan, we use the name Vagar because they can pronounce it more easily. Tell everybody your complete name, Alanchik. Tell them. Loud, so they can... No, not Alanchik, your full name.
Alan Kalis.
Alan Kalis what?
Walker.
Yes, that's your name. Give me a big kiss, please. I love you, love you, love you. Okay? Say goodbye to the camera. Perfect.